IMF, October 2021. What an interesting stage we are sitting in. The global economy in tandem is changing. The global growth has been predicted at 5.9%. Global output has been foreseen for next year 4.9%. This year 5.9, next year 4.9. This year 5.9, next year 4.9. Advanced economies like UK, US, Euro area and Japan, now for example, en bloc and aggregate terms, 5.2% they should perform, and they should move to 4.5 only next year. UK this year 6.8, next year 5%. US 6%, it's going to be 5.2%. Euro area 5%, next year 4.3%. Japan 2.4, next year going up to 3.2%. Emerging market and developing economies aggregate terms 6.4%, and next year it's going to be 5.1%. BRIC economies, if you look at the split, Brazil 5.2 this year, next year 1.5. Russia should do this year around 4.7%, next year 2.9%. India, arguably top in the list in terms of scorecard, 9.5%, next year 8.5%, arguably again the highest. China should do this year around 8%, next year 5.6%. South Africa should do this year 5%, next year 2.2%. Middle East and Central Asia should do around 4% this year, next year also the same, 4.1, 4.1. That's how it is. The big picture is world output is 5.9 this year, next year 4.9. Now if you look at the big picture, the global trade, despite temporary disruptions, trade volumes are expected to grow almost 10% in 2020-21, moderating about 7% next year, 2022, in line with the projected broader global recovery. Trade growth is moderate about 3.5% over the medium term. Short term, we can look at it objectively because last year was a major suffering. This year, we have a recovery, so it should grow around 10%. 2022 will be 7%. Now, if you look at the big picture, Qatar itself, they should do around 170 billion. GDP next year it should reach 180, 181. With the oil price coasting, it may be more, but in a conservative basis, this is how it is taken. Inflation should move, if you look at this year, around 2.5%, and next year it should move around 3% because we have a major function to host, event to host, that is 2022. So all about the hydrocarbon as well as non-hydrocarbon growth. Next year there is bound to be a population, if you look at the floating population will be more, otherwise the fixed population is around 2.7 million, next year also around the same, 2.7, 2.8. Gross debt around 59%, next year it will come down to 53%. Now if you look at the current account surplus, 14 billion will be this year, next year around 21 billion. As a percentage, 8% this year, next year around 12%. That's how it moves. If you look at the overall growth and momentum, we should do around 3%, next year around 4%. That's how the predictions are. Now UAE, we have similar reflection. It should do around 410 billion. We are seeing a similar trend, 427, 428 next year, 2% growth, 3% growth. When it comes to the gross debt, 37%, 38%. Current account balance, 40% as a percentage, 40 billion I should say, and it should move as a percentage 9.7% next year, also in the range of around 9.3, 9.4%. Inflation is still a question. Now, it is under control as far as the overall transitory inflation is there as a hype, but it will get moderated next year to less than 2.5. Now Saudi Arabia should be the largest economy, 840 billion. Next year also 875 billion. We are talking about 2.8% growth next year, around 4.8% growth. And the borrowing gross debt, if you look at it, it's around 30%. Next year also 31%. So that has got the largest population of 35 million, 36 million. Next year it may move. But overall, if you look at the productivity and the current account should report a surplus around 30 to 33 billion. Next year also similar reflection, 33 billion. As a percentage, nearly 4%. Next year also 4% will be there. Oman should do around 2.5%, next year around 3%. The GDP is around 80 billion, 85 billion next year. And if you look at the population of 4.5 million, 4.7 million, it will move next year. Now, as a percentage of GDP, their debt is around 68%, 61%. It will come down next year. US dollars around, you will have current account as a deficit. If you look at it, it has to come down, and the percentage of GDP is around, around 4.6 billion will come, and it will show as a percentage around 6% deficit this year. Next year it will get minimized. If you look at the population breakup, arguably the highest is in Saudi Arabia, 35, 36 million. And you have, if you look at UAE, it's all Emirates put together, there's a number which is substantive, not equivalent to, it is running in double digit. That's measurement still in place. Now, when it comes to Kuwait should be doing around 130, 132. Next year also we are seeing around 140 million. And it should grow around 1% this year, next year 4.3%. That's the projection as such. And as a percentage of GDP, their borrowing is very limited. It's around 8%. Next year also it may touch around 10 to 11%. They should be reporting a good trade surplus, 22 billion they should put. Next year around 19 billion, as a percentage around 15% current account surplus, next year around 13%. Bahrain is the smallest among the GCC, 39 billion will be their GDP, next year around 40 billion, 41 million, 2.5% next year around 3.1% I should say. And the population is limited, it's around 1.5 million. And next year also will have a similar reflection. As a borrowing, they have gross debt is as a percentage of the GDP is substantial, 123%, 125% we should say for next year. And they have a current account deficit of $1 billion, and it is around 2%. That's the big picture as far as IMF is concerned. Overall, if you look at the economic indicators, the growth outlook is promising, and the global trade is also promising. Let's see how the whole thing gets evolved in the coming days.